the way this ties into the Fenn treasure is, like I said, on one level, this is part of Fenn's consciousness as a child, Buster Brown. So, there was a person who played Buster Brown. A young man who played Buster Brown. All right. I think this is interesting. And other people have brought it up within the Buster Brown community, within the Fenn community of searchers. For a time, Buster and Tige, his dog, were characters that lived only in advertisements, posters, and comic strips. There was also a radio show Buster Brown was in. I'm not sure Buster Brown's character was in it, but there were other people that were in it that were characters in Buster Brown or something like that. Maybe I shouldn't even bring that up. Eventually, however, Brown Shoe Company wanted to bring the popular characters to life. Enter Barker. This is Richard Dick Barker. Dick, my dad, this sounds weird. Dick, my dad, had long golden curls, said Barb Baker, 81, a longtime Craig resident. Craig, Colorado. Been to Craig, Colorado. Lost my cell phone service in Craig, Colorado. Got lost and got lost and Edded Heast from Dinosaur Monument. Ended up in Craig, went all the way north, then hit, what would it be, 80, and went back to Rock Springs at the time that I was staying in Rock Springs. Dick, my dad, had long golden curls, said Barb Baker, 81, a longtime Craig resident and Barker's daughter. He was a very nice-looking little boy, and he could sort of sing and dance well enough to satisfy the kids, so he became Buster Brown. For most of his youth, Barker traveled the country impersonating Buster Brown. Problem was, it ruined Barker's life, essentially. And I don't mean to be overly dramatic, but what happened was, he would have to walk around pretty much all the time in costume. And it was frilly lace, satin, and velvet. He was forced to wear, as the character, his daughter said. Oh, it was his mother that forced him into the role of Buster. Now, this is a guy who literally wanted to be a cowboy, right? Right up Fenn's alley. He wanted to be a cowboy. Now, I don't know how many people back in the day or Fenn knew about this Barker's background with Buster Brown. Baker, I'm sorry, it is Baker. I'm not sure how much of the background story he knew at the time, because it's funny how we learned so many things later on about everything. But Barker wanted to be a cowboy. That's all he really wanted to be when he was a kid. However, the East Coast-born Barker was caught in a trap. While envisioning life the cowboy way, he was the centerpiece of a national marketing campaign for the Brown Shoe Company from 1907 to 1913. So Barker was, in effect, for a number of years, Buster Brown. What happened? He simply outgrew the part. There's no great mystery to that. But when they put out the call, when Buster Brown Shoes put out the call to, the shoe took on the, was based on the concept of the cartoon and all that, of course. And it was a great marketing ploy. We're Buster Brown Shoes. So this Dick Barker, his mother, stage mother, took him in, and he became the living embodiment of Buster Brown from the years of 1907 and 1913. For him, it was the ages 7 to 14. So for most of his youth, this kid who only wanted to be a cowboy, but who was forced into this role that no doubt made some money for the family and stuff. He had to travel the country impersonating Buster Brown. Apparently, he would even get into fights. Kids would make fun of him when they would see him out going to these things. You know, he had to wear this outfit. And long story short, Barker... Ooh, here comes the weather. They always say a tornado sounds like a freight train. Wow. Okay, well anyway, I better hurry up before this thing conks out on us. So he got out of playing this role that took up a lot of his childhood. And he went to live out in the Snake River Valley near Craig, I think. Well, he went out to live in the Snake River Valley in Wyoming. And that is... Oh, this is interesting. When Elkhart was doing The Yellow Kid and Buster Brown, he was in Denver, Colorado. Interesting. And that's where he was doing his stuff. Huh. So there's Colorado connection. But anyway, when Barker finally got out of this role as Buster Brown, he was able to go live in the Snake River Valley in Wyoming, which is to the east of Dinosaur National Monument. It started to get me excited again. And that's where he lived, and I think out the years of his life. And they have a museum now in Craig, Colorado, which is south, obviously. I was in Craig. If you've ever watched when I was in Vermilion Creek, I think it was that series where I got lost one time, and I actually ended up out in Craig, and there was no cell service, and it was this very, very small little town. But anyway, they have a museum there, and they have a thing about Barker in there. But he lived up in Wyoming in the Snake River Valley, and so some people thought Homa Brown. Even though his name was Barker, he had played this iconic character that maybe Fenn knew. Well, obviously Fenn had to have known about, but maybe in his remembering his childhood, maybe he knew the story. Apparently people knew the story because, got to remember, Buster Brown was huge back in those days. And although it was different times and the media was a lot slower and a lot different, it certainly is a well-known story in that area for them to have a museum, for them to feature Barker in the museum and talk about him and stuff. So this Barker guy, who after he was Buster Brown as a kid, apparently was very under the radar, still he went to live in the Snake River Valley, and I have read blogs where people have speculated where he actually lived was the Homa Brown. And all you have to do is go look up the Snake River Valley and you'll see the area he lived in. Now, all of that I kind of knew before I even did this video, or before I started researching this. So every time I'm looking up Homa Brown in reference to Buster Brown, it keeps coming back to this Barker, who was, you know, this Barker who played Buster Brown and lived in the Little Snake Valley. Oh man, people are really pushing it. Someone said right here that the fact that Fenn owned a Frederick Remington sculpture called the Bronco Buster was a hint. I don't think so. Here is what knocked me out when I was studying Homa Buster Brown. And here is something that I guess if you grew up in that time would have been something you would have known about. Apparently, from what I've read, it was an incredibly well-known slogan that all the kids knew about, and it was part of the Buster Brown Shoe Company. And all I knew about was this Barker, and you know how a lot of people have looked at it and said it's not valid, that Barker has none. If you look at where he lived, it's not really tied into the hunt, or you know, you'd have to really stretch it. There's no warm waters halt. I don't know what the thing is, but basically people poo-poo it and they say, you know, that ain't what's going on. And then I come across this article. This kind of knocked me off my feet. Article starts out there. Most of us over 50 remember the above words very well. This was the unforgettable slogan. Maybe I heard it when I was a kid, but most of us over 50? I think a lot of people over that are 50 are going to say, I never heard of this in my life. We'll give them his due, though, that earlier people, older people, and Fenn, of course, is now almost 90, that older people, this would be a well-known slogan. I'm taking him at his word that it was a well-known slogan. Maybe the advertisements are still out there somewhere. I know they were on TV in the 50s, because I'm hopefully it'll be playing one. This was the unforgettable slogan of Buster Brown, one of America's most enduring cartoon characters. In the first half of the 20th century, Buster Brown and his dog Tige were as well known as Charlie Brown or Homer Simpson would be to later generations. So what is this slogan that everyone in the nation was aware of in the first half of the 20th century, keeping in mind that Fenn was born in 1930? That's my dog Tige. He lives in a shoe. I'm Buster Brown. Look for me in there too. Buster Brown lives in a friggin' shoe. Homa Brown. I know. I know. You're going, Eric, come on. I'm just throwing it out there. Buster Brown lives in a shoe. It's a little weird, but Buster Brown, for the Buster Brown Shoe Company, a huge slogan that Fenn would have probably heard ad nauseum growing up, and the rest of the country was probably hearing ad nauseum in the early part of the century, and they even still had the commercials in the 50s, because I watched one. Buster Brown lived in a shoe. That's my dog Tige. He lives in a shoe. I'm Buster Brown. I live there too. I shortened it because their way of doing it. Homa Brown. Shoe, Horseshoe Bend, anything to do with shoe. I don't know, folks. I hope you don't feel like I wasted your time. I certainly didn't feel that way when I mean, it's as valid as a lot of other things I see out there. So if you have any ideas about this, you know, Barker lived on the little Snake River Valley, and he was the kid that played Buster Brown, so he's close to the hunt. It's interesting to me. He's in the Rockies, right? Little Snake River's in the Rockies, right? But Buster Brown lives in a shoe. It's the home of Buster Brown. It's a shoe. I think it's kind of cool. It's just another thing to think about. As usual, if you have any smart and insightful comments, please post them to help me along. That's what we're all trying to do, right? We're all trying to just open our minds. You never know what Fenn's thinking. We're talking about a poem. Fenn could have been so well aware of Buster Brown. Maybe he liked Buster Brown. Maybe he read Buster Brown and thought it was a really cool comic strip with that Fenn-like resolved, you know? Like he would talk about things that getting punished, and he always had this kind of smart alecky way of it being resolved. I mean, I can't think of an example right now, but those of us that know Forrest Fenn reading the books, I think you know what I'm talking about. A little bit of a Buster Brown attitude there. I don't know, folks. I hope everybody has a good day. I'm going to shut this operation down. We have very dark skies here. It's 1:15 in the afternoon. It's very overcast. It's raining hard, and we've had some sort of alerts in the other room. I'm assuming they're tornado or thunderstorm alerts or flood warnings. But I live on a hill, so I don't have to worry about that, thankfully. Everybody have a good day. Hope the search is going well. Anyway, everybody have a good time, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Does your shoe have a boy inside? What a funny place for a boy to hide.
Does your shoe have a dog there too?
A boy and a dog and a foot in a shoe. Well, the boy is Buster Brown,
And the dog is Tige, his friend.
and they're really just a picture, but it's fun to play pretend. So if boys and girls like you want some fun, get the shoe with a picture of the boy and the dog inside, so you can put your foot into Buster Brown's shoes. Ruff, ruff.